As students of law, we are trying to understand how the legal system in India revolves around this topic. The idea is not to hurt anyone's sentiment. And I apologize in advance, just in case, because of our individual personal views, if we end up triggering anyone or hurting, that would purely be unintentional, and we'll try to have a safe discussion. I would request you all to use the chat box for a safer conversation. Please be very careful about the choice of words you use, because you never know whom we might end up hurting. While the topic is related to sexual assault, and we want to have a discussion on the current Hathras case, and also talk about marital rape in India, which is, I think, not yet very openly accepted by the justice system. We, to a great extent, yes, we are going to restrict our perspective. From the point of view of females in this conversation. Please, if you have any, please feel free to use the chat box and share your views. We would be more than interested to address those as well. Now, since Pallavi ma'am is the legal expert here, ma'am, could you briefly introduce yourself, as well as tell us about the Hathras case and the facts? Like every day there's a new news coming in the same matter. So I think you could share that better with us.
Thank you so much for having me here. LawSikho and both of you have been excellent, and I'm so glad.
Ma'am, your voice is not very clear, so you'll have to be a bit louder.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Right. Can you mute and unmute your Zoom once?
Oh, just give me 1 second.
Right. Right. Try speaking now.
Are you able to hear me now?
We can, but it's the volume is still not.
I'll put on the AirPods then.
Right.
1 second.
Yeah, Namit, we are working on it.
Here now?
We can, but it's like the volume is really low. Initially, it was better.
All right, now I'm surprised. Maybe if you want, you can start with Dr. Kanak. In the meantime, I can join my AirPods.
Right. So you can exit and you can join as an attendee also, maybe, and then we can promote you. Priyanka, you can share the link with ma'am.
Yeah,
or you
sure.
can like join as a panelist, whatever is more feasible. Over to you, Kanak ma'am. So, like, brief introduction about yourself and your views on the current topic.
So I'm Dr. Kanak Tiwari. I'm a consultant obstetrician and laparoscopic surgeon. I'm practicing in Indore. I'm doing private practice as of right now, but I have worked in government hospital for 4 years. So I am in no way an expert on this. So thank you for your kind words, but I will try to help as much as I can.
Because when all of us, most of us at least here, are either from legal background or non-medical background.
Yes.
So when we talk about such a sensitive topic, we feel that it is important to know the perspective of a medical expert.
Yes.
So, right. So we'll just wait for Pallavi ma'am to join again, because I think she's the best person to talk about the legal aspects before we go into the medical aspects of the issue. And otherwise, the audience may not be able to connect with the flow.
Yeah.
So please give us 2 minutes.
No.
Ma'am to join. Has she joined through the current account? Okay, there are two Bhavna Agrawals here. I think Pallavi ma'am is joining through the webinar account. So let me just check with her once. Priyanka, can you quickly give her a call and check with her? Meanwhile, I'll request the audience members, you can use the chat box, and if you want to address any particular issue, if you want our panelists to answer any particular question of yours, you can type it out, and we'll just wait for Pallavi ma'am to rejoin. Yes, she's here. Ma'am, your video is still not.
Yeah, sorry, are you able to
Perfect. Yes.
hear me now? Is it
Yes.
better?
Much better.
1 second, I think there's some. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. But are you able to hear me now? Because I think you must be. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah? Sorry, I missed the conversation that Dr. Kanak was having just now. So what was it that she was telling us about?
She was just introducing herself, and then we were waiting for you to start.
Perfect. All right. So so I am actually Pallavi Pratap. I am advocate on record in Supreme Court, and I run a law firm which is by the name of Pratap and Company. A couple of years back, I was actually on panel of State of UP, where I had, interestingly, Bareilly division. Hathras used to be, sometimes we would get a couple of matters from Hathras also. But because I've done a lot of matters pertaining to the state government and, as they call it, 𝗬𝗺𝗪, I mean, the criminal matters. So I think one of the ways that I can actually enrich today's discussion is also from the perspective of how the state government actually looks at it. Now, I'm not a spokesperson for the current state government, but I'm typically telling you how lawyers who represent state government actually look at these matters, because typically 376 happens to be one specific section which, a lot of times people are not very vociferous about talking also. Or if there are cases which pertain to 376, I have noticed at least that a lot of women would not want to participate in that discussion, or maybe take up that matter also. So I feel that it requires a little bit of strength to be able to do the matter, to provide justice to the matter also, because I think culturally we are the kind of people who, as women, we are the kind of people who would not want to use certain terms. We are not very comfortable using those certain words, or to, be able to do justice with it in that sense. So I think when I started off, I was a young, like they say, cub reporter. I was a cub lawyer at that point in time. So, to be able to use certain words was always, I was always apprehensive, because if I had to tell it to my boss about, what was the finding in postmortem report, or if there was an MLC which was done, or if there was, and at that point in time, Dr. Kanak would also say, most of the matters earlier, they used to use a two-finger test, which in itself was I'm sure the victim would have gone through a lot going through a two-finger test. But even for me to discuss that earlier on in my career, it was difficult to, be able to inform or speak about it. But I think as we grow, as we do matters, and Dr. Kanak would tell you about postmortems, I'm sure the first time that she would have seen a dead body would have been very different from what it was probably a couple of years later, when she could probably have a cup of coffee also while doing a postmortem or things like that. I mean, I'm told like that, because I remember reading my first postmortem report, and I was like or Modi's jurisprudence, for instance, and I was like, my goodness, I'm just going to throw up because it used to be very difficult to look at such things. But I think this is a very strong reality, and we all have to come to terms with it, and specifically with the current case that we are dealing with, the Hathras case. The incident, it is, and there are so many things that we are actually seeing just now. The case, the story is still evolving, and there are so many evidences that I feel have not been brought to fore, or maybe have have been destroyed due to whatever reasons. I feel that if we look at the broader timeline, it seems that it was sometime in middle of September that the incident took place, and because of the incident, she was admitted in the hospital in Aligarh. It seems that, and Dr. Kanak would probably be able to tell better, but it seems that there was septicemia which was developed, as a result of which she was transferred and referred to Safdarjung. And this is, it is only in Safdarjung that she breathed her last. Now, if you look at it, there are a lot of points that legally also we have to, when you are arguing a case, especially when you are arguing it in trial court, there will be so many parts that we will see which the prosecutor will have to argue and will have to take note of. For instance, a very small thing, in terms of when you're talking about death, and here if the cause of death, it will be, I'm sure, written as due to septicemia resulting into whatsoever. So then, what is the repercussion of septicemia occurring? So is it, can you then bring them under 302 and into the broad sections of 300 or not? This is just an example that I'm giving, but I have done a case many years back where, death due to septicemia, it was very hotly contested because the accused person kept saying that I may have injured that person, but I did not injure him to the effect that he could have died. And septicemia happened as a result of the hospital's, inability to provide medical attention, and therefore I cannot be given 302. So our argument was primarily that it was because of your conduct that the victim was actually admitted to the hospital. That is a different liability that maybe the hospital may or may not have. That is a story of medical negligence. But why was the victim asked to, admitted to a hospital? So if you look at the Hathras case, you will see there's so many layers of it that one would have to argue upon. One would have to be very clear that I think is going to mold the entire trial. As far as 𝗫𝗫𝗅 was concerned, if you would see the evidence was gathered very quickly in that sense. But with Hathras case, I feel 15-20 days have passed by. It is very difficult to get the evidence that you want, especially considering that the dead body was burnt by putting dousing thinner on her. I think that's really sad state of affair for all of us. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps even now to think that someone's body is being burnt by putting thinner on. But evidence in that sense has been destroyed. Secondly, I feel the narco test that now the family is supposed to take. I mean, I'm surprised that now the state of affairs is such that the accused will be considered innocent until proven guilty, whereas the victim's family will now be considered as liars until they are proven innocent. How is it that, then what kind of a message are we sending? We're saying that, all right, because, we don't trust your word. There are these clips of the victim running on the TV, which can easily be considered as a dying declaration, if not strictly under the procedure that has been given as far as dying declaration is concerned, but it is still a dying declaration. And, those provisions, how is it that you are going to bring all of that evidence? So this is going to be a huge, I think, a trial which all of us would want to see and would want to follow, only because there will be so many different kind of evidences, both primary and secondary, which will be involved. The Evidence Act in terms of information technology, or the news channels, getting snippets from the victim and that being used. All of this, I think, will bring about a lot of change that we will see as far as trial is concerned. I'm sorry I spoke too long. If I can actually proceed further.
No problem, ma'am. So, since assuming that a lot of attendees here do not come from a legal background, and rather than using provisions, let's give them an introduction. If you could talk about what is IPC Section 376 and what does it talk about, and what is it the main section of concern for the discussion?
Okay, so now Section 376 is the section that provides the punishment for someone who has conducted rape on the body of a woman. Now, what is important is to understand that in IPC, which is the Indian Penal Code, the offense is defined in a section. So therefore, you will see the definition and what constitutes the offense in Section 375. And then in 376, you will see the punishment. Now, after, once the 𝗫𝗫𝗅 case took place, after that, Justice Verma Committee was formed, and Justice Verma Committee was supposed to look into the matter as to whether there are harsh punishments which are available, and also to look into what would constitute as gang rape. What would constitute as gang rape below, let's say, a 12-year-old girl or 16-year-old girl? What would constitute, and so of course POCSO comes into place, but different definitions were given in terms of what would constitute gang rape. So let's say, for instance, there are two people who are there. One person conducts the act of rape, whereas the second person is just standing there maybe as a bystander or just standing there for whatever reasons. He will be equally charged under the provisions of gang rape, and he will have the same punishment even if he has not done anything, because gang rape says that it is not the act but also the fact that someone else is present at that site, at that place, will definitely constitute. So now if you look at it, I mean, I'm just trying to give a little version of whatever little understanding I have of Hathras case. If you hear the victim statements over the TV, you will realize that she's talking about one accused, Sandeep, and then she's talking about some other gentleman called Ravi. Now, Sandeep, she keeps saying, is the one who had done that act, but then Ravi was standing. So this is the reason why it is put under gang rape. Now, gang rape punishment is defined under Section 376D. It is only after Justice Verma Committee came and gave their, the inputs, which then resulted into, these amendments which were brought about in the CRPC as well as IPC, that helped in terms of ascertaining, harsher punishments which could be given to rapists, specifically as far as rarest of the rare case was concerned. So for instance, if we've seen 𝗫𝗫𝗅, we've seen that capital punishment was given to the rapists. Also, not just because of 302 being there, but also the fact that 376D talks about life term in that sense. So I think that should probably give an understanding about what 376 IPC is. And what was the second part of the question, Priyanka? I'm sorry, I missed out on that.
Can you explain like 376 as a section and how it is implied in this case, like that you've explained?
That I've explained, yes.
Yeah, and later legal background, explain them how, for example, that we will discuss further in discussion that 161 of CRPC, statements under 161 and statements under 164 of CRPC, how will they be used in this particular case, and what is the importance of it?
Right. So I think about the statements, I would actually now want to move on to that. But earlier, I think are you able to hear me? Priyanka, are you able to hear me? All right. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, so we've basically, yeah, wonderful. So let me just very quickly explain what is a 161 statement and what is a statement which is given under 164. Now, 161 statement is a statement which is given, which is recorded under CRPC, and this is recorded in the case diary of the investigating officer. So even as far as SIT is concerned, which has been appointed just now to undertake the investigation, the SIT will have an investigating officer who will be the IO, and he will be, if you've seen the video clips, you'll see that he's writing something all the time. That is the statement of everybody who's probably from the family or any eyewitness. All of that gets recorded in the case diary, and that is under section 161 CRPC, where the investigating officer records the statement. Now, what is the difference between 161 and 164? It becomes clearer that as far as 164 CRPC statements are concerned, these are recorded before the magistrate. So, and typically, as far as rape cases are concerned, it is always recorded before the magistrate, because the prosecutrix, if she's alive, will go and record her statement before the magistrate to ensure that there is authenticity to whatever it is that she said. And if you would see it in procedural practice that we do, you will see that 161 statements come in handy when trial is happening. So many times you will see that 161 statements which have been given to the investigating officer, you will see that somebody goes into the court when the trial is happening and says the completely opposite statement. Whereas in 161 statement, maybe he would have said, I saw this person commit this. When he goes in the trial, he will say, I don't know, I did not see anything. So he may become a hostile witness, or or he would just be blatantly lying over there. Therefore, it is just these contradictions that then you show to the judge in order to establish your case. So this is primarily the part as far as the trial courts are concerned. But the relevance of 161 statements, if you see when you're practicing in Supreme Court and there is an appeal that comes in, you will see that the Supreme Court or any appellate, a high court will definitely look at 161 statements in ascertaining whether or not the judgment has been right. But Supreme Court, you will see that they typically do not go looking at 161 statements. However, these discrepancies that one sees as far as 161 statements are concerned, and the statement which is given under oath, which is called as deposition, which is given under oath before the trial court, if there is a discrepancy, this can always be a ground as far as maybe if there is an acquittal, it is, or if there is punishment, it definitely forms a huge foundation as far as that is concerned. Similarly, for 164 statements, we will see typically that confessions are recorded over there. But in case of rape, the prosecutrix records her statement, tells about what has happened to her, and gives as many details as possible, so that statement then becomes, it is like the holy grail for the trial to take place. If you look at the dying declaration that has taken place, that is what the clips of the news channels that we've been seeing. The dying declaration also has to be conducted before whosoever is there, SDM or the doctor, whosoever is there, they record the dying declaration. So this, I think, will always be a contentious point as far as looking at or proving this to be dying declaration, the statement that the victim had given. This is going to definitely be a little bit of a problem for bringing it into the wider point of considering this to be dying declaration, because typically dying declaration is considered to be the last statement that that the victim is giving. So I think these points will be of a bit of concern. Priyanka?
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, so ma'am, you were saying something.
Good. We need some medical advice now
Yeah.
because audience wanted to understand few medical terms Pallavi ma'am was using. So Priyanka, go ahead.
So yeah, as Pallavi ma'am was saying, the cause of death and what is a viscera report, if you can throw some light on it, that how in this case it will be important as victim has died, and I have heard that viscera report is used in post-mortem cases, like when post-mortem happens. So if you can explain us what is that and how is it important and the cause of death that happened.
Right. So one question I'm seeing in the chat box, I'll just clear it out. Septicemia, somebody's asked. So septicemia is basically any infection that is happening in, say, any part of the body, and it spreads throughout the body, through your blood. And septicemia is, if it is left untreated, even in a healthy individual, I'm not talking about somebody who's 70 years old or somebody who's a child of say 5 years younger or something like that. Even if in a healthy individual, if it's left untreated, it can have a mortality up to around 60%. That is what is septicemia. So in this case, particularly in patients who are, or I should say victims who are dying as a result of sexual assault or rape, viscera can be more conclusive to give us an indirect cause of death, say septicemia. The direct cause would still be the injuries through which that septicemia has arose, as well as it will be able to tell us more about the extent of trauma that has been caused. For example, my screen is visible, right?
Yes, you are visible and you're audible also.
Okay. So, for example, say I have a, this is something that we are seeing more commonly in our practice, especially when I was working in the government setup, and we used to have regularly rape victims being brought up, and we had to examine them. I had one patient who was in the ICU because of her injuries. She was 7 years old. And in that case, we had seen that after her assault, the injury had extended from her vagina to the anal opening as well as to the urinary opening. So it was a polytrauma case. In that case, it had, thankfully, the mother had brought her daughter pretty soon. And so we could actually save her. But if in such a case, if the patient has been brought late or if the treatment has been delayed, in those cases, the mortality can be very high. Through the viscera, we can identify that yes, there is an evidence of sepsis, there is an evidence of infection, and how much is the infection? Is it like extremely severe or is it still moderate? At the same time, we can probably say the cause of the infection, from where the infection might have arose. We can never say that definitely, because once the patient is dead, there might be, and especially in these circumstances where the patients are normally, of rural background or something like that, they are not that aware of their medical history. This is something that can be used against the victims, that okay, this might have been because of some previous injury. She might not have known. And these the relatives in these cases, the victims' relatives, the victims' families, they are very easy to manipulate in these cases. That okay, you might not be knowing. And they will, poor people, they'll be like, yes, we definitely do not know. We don't know. We've never taken her to the hospital. When it comes to the initial examination of rape victims, that is the golden hour. The earlier a victim is brought, the more conclusive we can be about how badly the patient is affected. At the same time, it is more conclusive for us to identify the assaulter as well, because of the window of secretions. For example, if the semen fluid or any body fluid, if it's found on the skin or if it's found in the oral mucosa, it can be collected up till 2 days. 48 hours. If it's in the anal opening or the butthole opening, then it can be collected up till 72 hours. And in case of vaginal, secretions, it can be collected up till 7 days. So if all these things matter, if the patient has doused, I'm sorry, I keep using the term patient, but if the victim has doused or taken a bath, then these findings will be altered. So that is one thing.
Right. You've used a lot of medical terms.
I'm very sorry.
But I'm glad you shared it with us, because we were able to at least understand a few things, if not everything, certain things. And our legal expert, I think there was some connectivity issue. So Priyanka is calling Pallavi ma'am. Meanwhile, if the audience members have any particular question for Dr. Kanak, you can write in the chat box. The legal questions shall be addressed by Pallavi ma'am. Dr. Kanak, I wanted to understand, so far what you spoke majorly, we were talking about when a sexual assault is done on a female's body. Now,
Yes.
if a sexual assault is done on a male member as well, which I think is not very much recognized, but rape on a man, then how does the medical science go for the evidence part? Like, is the process
The
or are there
evidence is pretty much collected in a similar way. I have been dealing with MLC cases when I got into my residency. That is my MD training. So that was of gynecology. So obviously I haven't dealt with the male victim collection, but as far as I know from my forensic training in MBBS, it is pretty much collected in a similar manner. All the swabs, all the sample that is collected from the mouth, from the nose, from the butthole opening, from the skin, and we collect 2 samples of each.
Right. Priyanka, do you have clarity on Pallavi ma'am? Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to contact her, but seems like she's a bit unreachable now. Maybe her internet got disconnected, but I'm trying to contact her.
Yeah.
So I'm actually seeing a question over here saying, what about transgender? So transgenders, we have to be collecting sample in as per their original gender. That is how we collect it. Like, for example, if somebody is a female who is converted to male, then we will be collecting samples in alignment with female body and vice versa.
Okay. There is a question in the Q&A section. If the person's death is dead, then in case, how do you know if it's a case of rape or anything else? Basically, I think he's trying to understand that what if there is no evidence available, like the body is not there anymore, then how do you decide?
If the body is not there,
Right. Like, for example, I think he's saying that the person is no more and the body, like in Hathras case, just imagine that they didn't go for the postmortem before that and they've burned the body. Now, in such kind of a hypothetical situation, how would medical science come up with any solution? I think that would be a topic of legal discussion than medical discussion.
But as far as I think it will be more of a. It can only be a substantial evidence. You can never say definitely unless. It's like what we are seeing in this COVID era. There are a lot of patients who are coming to me with an X-ray report saying that, okay, this patient, she has COVID. We cannot define somebody without a swab test. So the definite is the swab test. Like an X-ray or a CT scan can give you an idea that, okay, this might be that, but it can be 200 other things as well.
Right. I'm glad Pallavi ma'am is back. We had lost you in between and there were a lot of legal queries. Ma'am, can you hear us? I think her internet is fluctuating a lot.
So there's a question somebody has put: if male is using condom at the time of doing rape and no sperm found, and other evidence could not be found, then how can one prove it? In that case, if we have findings whenever we collect the swab and we are not able to find sperm in the vagina, in that case we always mention it that no sperm or seminal fluid content found in the vagina can be due to a Salter wearing condom. This is something we have it as a practice. So as doctors, we can definitely not give a conclusive statement.
Right. So Pallavi ma'am, we are glad you're back.
I'm so sorry about the whole mess up that is happening today.
No problem.
Sorry, tell me please.
So, ma'am, Kanak ma'am shared a lot of medical knowledge with us.
I could actually hear it, but in the meantime, it suddenly got disconnected. Yes.
No problem. So, like, while we take time to process the medical knowledge, we'll come back to you for some legal knowledge. You mentioned about Justice Verma Committee. So now, every time a news like this, be it 𝗫𝗫, be it Unnav, be it Hathras, or any other news, the public comes on road with candle marches and everybody shouting for capital punishment, capital punishment. Now, as per the Justice Verma Committee, I think it mentioned about the lifetime imprisonment while during the lifetime of the accused. But how? So, what are your views on it? Like, could you share that?
In terms of whether or not I'm pro-capital punishment or anti-capital punishment,
and with reference to Justice Verma Committee as well, like it's about natural lifetime punishment and not capital punishment.
Correct. So, I think capital punishment as our country has always had that capital punishment would be given only in the rarest of the rare cases, and imagine. That was supposed to be the deterrent that such incidents would not take place again. But we've seen that such incidents are actually taking place every second day that we hear someone's been gang raped. Why is it that this is still not considered to be a deterrent? Because I think people feel that there is a fail-safe kind of a mechanism which is there, and that they can obviously make their way out of all of this. And I think culturally also there is some kind of a mindset change or shift that requires to be brought about. Having said that, I feel that yes, the cases where we feel that there is a rarest of the rare case would probably be where victim dies as a result of such heinous crimes being committed on her. In the present case included, if we see she died as a result of brutal assault which was done on her. I'm sure Dr. Kanak would have spoken about it in terms of if she's discussed a post-mortem report, she would have talked about the spine being broken and things like that. So all of that actually does speak about the kind of brutality that is shown, one. Secondly, that definitely requires capital punishment as far as such cases are concerned. Now, we also have to understand at some level that, in our country, laws are not just providing support, they are also providing you rights. But just as a law provides rights and supports, there are also many cases where these laws are being misused also. In terms of, I have for myself seen a lot of frivolous 376 cases filed. And these cases have been filed by maybe it was a relationship which went wrong, or it could have been filed by the girl's daughter, girl's father on someone else's because wo koi khandani dushmani chali aa rahi thi. So they were just trying to use the girl to be a prey in that sense. All of this we've seen that these happen. But when we look at something like Hathras, we see that capital punishment becomes important, because even if capital punishment is given, 𝗫𝗫, the accused were hanged this year. All of them were hanged. I mean, what is it that stopped anyone? Nobody has stopped. From UP itself, there are at least 3 gang rape cases that we've heard only in past 3 days. Has it been a deterrent? It hasn't been a deterrent. Although, one would imagine that knowing the way or the manner in which these people have been given capital punishment, it might act as a deterrent. It hasn't. So clearly there is something that is required in terms of not just sensitizing people that, you know, what you're doing is actually wrong, and that you are going to suffer repercussions. Because right now, I think there is more, you know, a lot of people actually think that they are invincible. The law cannot touch them. And all the circus that has been going on of late over TV past 2 days, I think this just brings about more conviction in the minds of the accused that, you know, it's not, they can't be touched. Have we been shown at any stage about the accused persons? We've not been shown. We are only shown the victim's family. What is happening? You know, this kind of an interrogation that SIT is doing right now of the victim's family, this is the kind of interrogation you're required to do of the accused. You are not letting, you know, you're not questioning the accused. The accused has not been summoned. He's not been brought. You've not even got him. What is the status? Nobody knows about the accused. What is happening in this whole circus which is going on is victim's family, victim's family, victim's family is being made as if, you know, they are the culprits. So what happens then? It's the direct repercussion is that tomorrow if somebody else suffers from gang rape, they would not approach the court. They will not approach the judiciary. They will not approach the police, only because they'll be scared that if this has happened, these are all live examples which are being set up. And my personal fear is that Justice Verma committee wanted to ensure that the victim was given so much power that she could actually come out and say that, okay, this is the person who raped me and that he should be punished. But I think, unfortunately, when we look at the applicability of law, it is all, it just vanishes, and we are all left disappointed in so many ways.
Right. Now, moving ahead, so since the other part of our topic is also about marital rape, which so far hasn't been officially recognized. Now, Justice Verma committee also mentioned that this exception of marriage from section 375 of IPC should be removed. Now, what are your views on it, whether you agree to it or not? And in general, your views on marital rape. You might have seen cases coming to the Supreme Court on this issue. How has judiciary's response been towards this?
See, I think the response that we've seen of judiciary and mostly of you know, the lawmakers or the legislators in the country is primarily that they feel that there is a very thin line of determining whether or not rape has taken place under a setup of marriage. So marital rape, I think, becomes equally difficult to establish. And this is where I would probably require Dr. Kanak to tell me. I mean, this is a question that has always been in my mind, that let's say tomorrow I go on a trial, I'm representing a woman who has been raped as far as, you know, marital rape is concerned. How will I be able to, you know, establish that she's been raped by her husband? So these are finer distinctions that require and that are required, one, and that the law has to be framed in such a manner that that, you know, the frivolous aspects of questioning, the frivolous aspects of evidence are removed. Because if you would see, I don't know, I mean, I'm pretty old and I'm sure a lot of you are very young people, but I'm sure there was a movie called Damini which had come. I think it was one of those very interesting early movies which talked about rape, gang rape, which talked about how it was difficult to get justice. And I think, you know, we are seeing that happen just now in the country as well, in each and every rape case where people are trying to destroy evidence. So then how do you establish or provide that evidence as far as marital rape is concerned? For a 376 or a 376D, I can still accumulate evidence and prove it before the court of law. But can I do the same thing for marital rape or not? I think that is a larger question which requires huge deliberation, one, and secondly, an effective understanding of how that can work as far as the framework of marriage or the sacrosanct way a marriage should be is concerned.
Right. So before we move further, it's already 2:45. We had the permission from both of you for 1 hour. So would you mind if we extend the session, because there are a lot of questions and
you can. It's a Saturday for me, but you should ask Dr. Kanak if she has to be in hospital.
No, I'll be fine.
Okay. So, Dr. Kanak, Pallavi ma'am asked you one question, like in such a situation, in a state of marriage, how do you decide what kind of from the point of view of medicine?
Right. So this is an extremely difficult situation to diagnose, if I may say, because there can be never a definite evidence of marital rape. That cannot be said. What we can find are very suggestive findings. Most of these people who have been through marital rape have also been through domestic violence. So that is something that we have seen, that, you know, if you are finding, if you're having findings of domestic violence, or say some added injuries, that can be used to kind of pinpoint towards the whole thing. At the same time, when we do an entire examination of the female, the hymen, or what is called as the covering shield of the vagina, that is something that is penetrated at the time of intercourse. So the way in which, the shape in which it is penetrated can give us a finding that can be consistent with rape or marital rape. Or the problem is that these findings can also be seen in case of say rough sex. That is the issue, which is something which goes against the victims. A lot of the main issue as a gynecologist that I see in such cases is that the patient profile, they are not really willing to talk about it because they know that there is no law to protect them. That is one very big issue. Most of the patients, they are accompanied to the clinic in India by some or the other relatives. Most of the time it's somebody from the in-law side. And the moment, it is something that comes with experience to a doctor, that you realize that, okay, you know, this woman wants to say something to you. And at that time, you're like, okay, yes, can you please leave? I need to talk to her alone. And then when the relatives go away, that is when the woman confides in us. That, you know, this is the issue, that is the issue. And then as a doctor, I can also not involve somebody else or the authorities against the woman's wishes, or even, you know, but the woman needs to take the stand. It is primarily the woman who needs to file, and I can just suggest her that, okay, this is it. And if in case I see an injury mark or something like that, in that case I do summon the relatives, because there is no other way that I can do in my position.
Right. And like so far within our 49 minutes discussion itself, we've realized there are so many other topics which have arisen from this conversation. Be it, firstly, why do rapes or sexual assaults take place at the first place? And then there's a full psychological angle to it. One discussion could exclusively be on that topic. And then, like Pallavi ma'am spoke about,
in fact, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, Samanka. There's one thing that's very interesting that we have noticed in even in older women, in say like those who have turned 40, 45, and they come to a doctor saying that, okay, you know, I'm having a constant backache, or I'm having a constant lower pain, and we are not able to find a cause to it. There's a lot of women you see that, okay, you know, they're just always complaining. When you talk to them, or when you confide, or when they confide in you, you can actually, you know, elicit a history of sexual abuse or childhood abuse in around 25 to 28%. And this is a published research that I'm talking about. So the manifestations of this can be very, very varied. That is, and I'm really sorry I'm interrupting again. But then Pratap said something about this Hathras victim, that, you know, she had the spinal injury. One very difficult thing that we face in victims who have been brought to us, who have also had other injuries, gross injuries like the spinal cord injury. Once your spinal cord or your vertebral column has been injured, that can typically lead to weakness or inability to move your lower body. That is your legs. In case of victim examination, we need to have a proper position of the patient so that we can collect the sample adequately. This is something that we face in these patients. Those who have been brought with severe injuries, the first thing we need to do is we need to give them initial treatment. A lot of these patients, they become vegetative, or that is paralyzed or something like that, or they have developed fractures as well. In those cases, we cannot give them a gynecological position, the one you see in movies where how a woman delivers. So that is extremely difficult for us, because first of all, we need to look at the life of the patient, and then only we can think about collecting the specimen. And by that time, when the patient is able to move a little bit, a very important time frame is lost for us. That is, I think that is why probably a lot of rapes are associated with severe injuries, or the woman becoming paralyzed or something, and in spite of that, there is no evidence, sadly.
That's a very surprising yet interesting fact you've shared, because I wasn't aware of this side of medical side of this. So Priyanka, you were asking something. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Pallavi ma'am, we know that nothing can be ultra vires the Constitution. However, this exception itself, isn't it violating Article 15, Subclause 3, Article 19, and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution?
Ma'am, you're on mute.
I know. This is. I think this is the sad part of all of us. I mean, we are all, and this is interesting also because this is a panel which belongs to women. Right now, I see like 4 of us. We are all women who are here. I have seen panels which are actually, I'm sure you guys must be seeing, which are called as manels these days. And women topics are being discussed by a panel which has got only men in it. Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of men must be here also. Nothing, no discomfort to all of you. But it's just something that I wanted to say. So I actually wanted to congratulate you guys for doing this. One. Secondly, as far as Constitution is concerned, we all have our fundamental rights which have been enshrined in the Constitution, which has been given to us, and which we all have the right to exercise. Unfortunately, we've seen that a lot of these rights are being blatantly, abused. And we will all see it, at least in our lifetimes, be it you, be it me, be it anybody. We've always seen that there is some kind of a violation of our fundamental right that takes place. Now, as far as 15.3 is concerned, if you look at it, the Article 15.3 very clearly talks about that the states have the rights to, states have the duty to ensure that women and children are supported. And today, right before joining in for this discussion, I was looking at the news, and Madam Smriti Irani was speaking at that point in time, and she was saying that out of the 𝗫𝗫𝗅 fund which was made, there was some 7,000 crore rupees, which were, or 9,000 crores, I'm not sure about the figure, that was given to the state governments to ensure that women are protected. Now that becomes a state subject. I have given my funds to the state. Now the state government is supposed to find out where they want to put it in, how is it that they want to execute it, all of that. And we've seen how long has this fund been in existence. I think about good 6-7 years. But this is still happening. The level is still the same, and probably because of media, we are seeing more reporting of all of this. So what is the issue now? Isn't it my fundamental right or the fundamental right of the victim to be protected? And that protection is required to be given by the state. But unfortunately, we are not seeing that. As a matter of fact, if you look at the right to privacy judgment, where is the privacy? There is no privacy just now. A victim does not have the privacy. Her name gets out the moment there is a rape news which is there. Hundreds and thousands of times the judgments have been passed where you're not supposed to take the name of the victim. But all of us know the name of the victim just now. All of us know the name of the 𝗦𝗺𝗃 victim just now. These were all part of my or anybody's constitutional right, which was given to me under Article 19 and 21. But is it exercised? It's not. So unfortunately, like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. I think even though there is a lot of power which is given to all of us as citizens through constitutional mechanism, we've seen that we've not been, a lot of times we as citizens are also lacking as far as our responsibility is concerned, and as far as government is concerned, I can't really say too much about it. So
I'm glad you brought the right to privacy and 𝗫𝗫 judgment, because I was about to ask you the same thing, that we as women, how much do we have that right anymore? If it is there, especially right to privacy to our bodies. But since you've already covered it, one common question, last question before we take the questions from the audience. Now, ultimately the conclusion remains the same, that we have to be the protectors of our own. They say families they say that, like, oh, 7:30, 8 o'clock, sunset ho gaya, you have to be inside the house, and especially in smaller cities. So
no, not just smaller cities. I'll just add it here. I'm actually in Delhi. I'm a lawyer. I have a driver who's there, and I have someone or the other who's a support staff who's there. But the moment there is a rape news that comes in, my father will start calling me at 6 o'clock and say, "Kahan ho tum? Abhi tak ghar nahi aayi." So, this is what, and I'm going to be 40 now. But I think this is going to go on till such time that he's alive. And of course, tomorrow, if I have my niece or anybody, then I will be actually asking them the same question. I'm sure Dr. Kanak must be doing the night shifts, and then the family must be asking the same question, where are you? So this has to change culturally. I think there is a lot that needs to be changed.
One aspect that that I feel that is ignored a lot by government, and I feel like you guys can definitely help by, I don't know, filing a PI or whatever. I'm very layman to this whole legal field. But one thing that we've seen is that most of these victims, they come for examination to a district hospital or a medical college, government medical college. And most of them are brought initially to the casualty area, because that is where the medical officer is there who will file the MLC. Now, the casualty area is common area for all the patients who are coming with any sort of emergency. Somebody's just had an accident, they'll also be there. In that case, it becomes so apparent for everybody, for all the patients, and everybody knows that, okay, this girl has been brought up, or this child has been brought up, and they have been raped. And it's very difficult. But think about it from a victim's perspective. You have already been violated so badly, and now the last thing you want is to be in the center of a spotlight. I think I have undergone training in UK as well, and one thing that I really like over there is they have these designated rape centers. That is the place where the victim will go for filing their legal documents. That is where they'll go for their medical examination. That is where they'll also go for counseling and therapy. It is such an excellent thing. I think if you set up something like this in India, and instead of keeping these local cops involved in these cases, have rotational duties of, say, CRPA personnel or somebody like that, I think that will really, because I don't clearly blame the police. I might be in controversy because of saying that, but I don't really blame them, because it is natural to anybody. Once you are in a particular situation, gradually your sensitivity lowers down. I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but
absolutely right. We become immune to that then.
Yes, when I was in my MBBS, I just started my internship. The first time I saw a patient die in front of me, it was a gut-wrenching experience. But after 3 years of my residency, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, she's died. Okay, fine. It becomes natural. I think that is what happens with the local cops as well, because they've dealt with so much of these things. They are particularly lost sensitivity to these issues. especially when it comes to underage girls or children. Children is what I would refer to anybody less than 18. So particularly in children, I think as in terms of examination also, if the children or the kids have been in a sensitive environment, they definitely cooperate with the examination. Otherwise, most of the times we have had to anesthetize them, take them in the operation theater and then collect samples, because they are so traumatized they don't even let us touch them. They are only clinging to their mother. Even 17-year-old, 18-year-old girls. It's really sad. I think that is something that should be done, because the rapes, I don't think, are going to stop. Honestly, as
you've actually
that's actually true. That's such a brilliant idea. I mean, in terms of if of course, I think this is something that we must voice to the NCW, and we must look at maybe filing a PIL in the current environment. I think Dr. Kanak, you've actually, and as a matter of fact, maybe you can, if you can share that some kind of a document or some link about these rape centers, maybe we can look at it and
definitely. I will.
That's something new we got to learn. So we as lawyers will be able to help you only when you as doctors will be able to help us. So collectively, I'm glad we got some solution out of this discussion today, because
ma'am, I would like to add something.
Yes.
I was seeing a show and their victim has come domestic violence. What the doctors did was they took her sample and they said that later also we'll just take your sample now. If you want to file a case later also, we'll use this sample in your defense. And that is such a brilliant thing to do. Right now she was not confident, but maybe 2 years later or maybe 6 months later, the limit time.
Absolutely.
We can go to the court and file it. I wish we could do this in India also. Maybe now she's not confident, but maybe 2-3 years later she might have that strength to file it. And if
as a matter of fact, Priyanka, the Domestic Violence Act actually gives you, there is no limitation as far as Domestic Violence Act is concerned. So you can file it at any point in time. But yes, having that MLC is important. What happens is that once there is a victim, and Dr. Kanak will tell you, so many times I've seen upper, the higher class women who've been suffering from domestic violence, they'll go to the doctor and they'll say, don't write anything. I don't want anything written. So I think that is where then later on they want to file a case and then they don't have that evidence with them.
Right. Secondly, I'll just add, because Dr. Kanak said that the state police get so used to of having similar matters. I remember I had gone to file the complaint for my mobile loss case, and then the police officer there was telling me about a couple who has a habit of fighting every night, and then the husband beats the wife, she cries, goes to the police station, and every morning they'll reconcile and go back happily. And he's like, this is so frequent that I don't even know what to do with them.
So, you remember this show which was there, 𝗬𝗲𝗃 𝗵𝗏𝗃, and there was this first place where you see that this man is beating the wife, and then the police cop comes to rescue, and then she starts to beat the cop. I mean, this is actually what is happening. So it becomes difficult also for the police to intervene as to how will they.
No, please continue.
No, I was just saying, appreciating you. I mean, this idea that you've given, fabulous. I mean, I've done so many webinars, but today I feel like, all nirvana has struck me suddenly in terms of, this is the option that is available, and that I would actually personally feel, maybe all of us can join in and file a PIL, which can then provide some kind of a support. This is maybe our 2 bits to the entire tragedy that is taking place.
Also,
the first... Sorry. No, I was just saying the first MLC case that I got to handle in my residency. I remember the girl walked in. She was accompanied by a male and a female constable. And the male constable comes at me and he's like, "Madam, false case hai, aap to bas fatafat kar do." And this was the first time, and I said, "False case?" And he said, "Haan, ye to hota rehta hai." Like, what? This is what he told me as a doctor, that false case hai, kuch aap chinta mat karo, don't worry about it. These things keep happening.
So that even these local police is because they have a lot of political pressure as well. If you go through the video, the first video where the body is burning and the reporter is constantly asking the police officer, "Ye kiska video chal raha hai?" and he says, "Madam, I am not even allowed to speak." He says, "मुझे law and order के लिए भेजा है." The video, in that video, he uses the word that, "मैम, मैं एक बहुत छोटा officer हूँ, मैं बोल भी नहीं सकता हूँ," are his exact words in that video, which clearly shows that if the person who's responsible for maintaining law and order is not even allowed to share the facts, then how much will the process of justice would happen in that case? So she gave a very good suggestion here. Lastly, let's start taking questions from the pool. So Kumar is asking, what will be the criminal liability of police officials involved in tampering evidence, like a video where police were persuading and convincing victim's family to burn the body at night?
All right, so basically in that you will have 201, which will come, which is a non-bailable offense. But interestingly, will police register a case against their own lot? I think we will have to wait and watch, because primarily the police uses 201 against accused persons. Now here, the police itself, they themselves are involved in tampering the evidence. And believe me, tampering of evidence is always considered, it's a non-bailable offense. It's a huge offense that is there. And still, I think it is for us to wait and see if any of these FIRs are registered against these police officers who were present. And there's just one thing that I wanted to add here. It's been, I think, the third or the fourth day so far. And from what I could see on TV was that the body is still, burnt, and the ashes are still lying there. So, and the family, of course, has not been allowed to, take the ashes and do the rituals that you are supposed to do. So this in itself shows that like I told you, and I'm sure you would all know about Arna Schonberg case, where we've talked about euthanasia and all. So if I have a right to live with dignity, I also have the right of death, which has to be dignified. So if I'm burnt, at least my ashes should be provided to my family members, and that it should be given. As far as Hindus are concerned, there are sanskars, and this is again one of the last sanskars that has to be conducted. So that should come, and all of that has happened as a result of the police and the manner in which they were so, they just wanted to ensure that all the evidence is destroyed, so that you cannot really have anything that can, then link back to the accused persons. So I am actually waiting and watching whether or not an FIR gets registered. See, what has happened so far, as far as these police officers are concerned, is that they have been suspended. Now, all of us know what happens with suspension. That goes on your record, and then it gets expunged. So maybe 2 years later, that suspension will be expunged from your record also, and you will keep getting your promotions as you're supposed to. Right? Is that a deterrent to the police officers themselves to not do something like this? No. My answer at least is no.
And suspension on paper, actually.
On paper, correct, yes.
Right.
Just very sad.
Right. Suyansh is asking, what cases can be filed in the present case against the police? Is the act of stopping a journalist and politician a violation of Article 19(1)(d)?
See, they've been using 188 so far as I know. 188 is disobedience to order, which is promulgated by public servant. So against the politicians, they used 188, saying that, because 144 was already in place and therefore you disobeyed, so this is 188. But as far as media persons are concerned, there is not too much of a case that can be made out, except for what I personally feel is that there has been some manhandling as far as women reporters were concerned, which I think would then attract the fact that, it was the manner in which they were dealt with. I think that was not the right way of doing things. There are other women police officers who've been grabbing the media person. As a matter of fact, I saw that in one of the politician who was there on the Yamuna Expressway, one of the lady politician, her entire suit was ripped from behind. And that, I think, these are all sections which will be invited, but it is up to the police to register an FIR. Complaints must be there, but We all know how often these complaints actually convert into FIR. This is for all of us to see.
Right. The same police handling the sexual assault matter, assaulting women who are trying to cover the same matter, which is very ironical. Okay, so what advice as an advocate can one give to someone who's being falsely accused under 375 of for sexual harassment?
See, in my experience that I have seen, there are a lot of ways in which you can establish if somebody is being falsely accused. Because, you know, very honestly, I have at least noticed that there are evidences which are always plenty to establish whether or not a rape has happened or it has not happened. And like I said in the initial part of this discussion, that while I was in the State of UP's panel, I had seen so many of these frivolous documents that were, you know, the frivolous cases which were recorded. I suggest you look at the case diary, because you will always find that 161 statements of the family members or the eyewitnesses who've been there. That will provide you all the details. Case diary, I feel, in all of the trial matters is the most important component. The MLC will also be reproduced in the case diary, so you'll get the entire details in it. Get a certified copy of the case diary if you can through the court's order, and that will then provide you the details. Secondly, ensure that when you're cross-examining someone, you're able to cross-examine that person on all the discrepancies that you can see. Because I think when a person is lying, there are so many discrepancies that you can see in that statement of that person, because they will never remember exactly what they said. It is not, unfortunately, the you know, that movie Drishyam, where on 2nd October everybody knew that they are going to Panaji. I think that has been floating so much since yesterday. But nonetheless, it is not that everybody will always be so smart as to remember their lines and be able to say it. You will always notice the discrepancies, and those discrepancies always help you in establishing a case if there is a false charge which is.
Right. Also, since you mentioned a lot about media circus, what is the responsibility of media in this kind of a situation? Even though in Sushant's case, we spoke a lot about trial by media, but here the same media, why isn't it taking the responsibility of covering more about the accused and not just the victim's family?
You know, you just actually answered my the question that you gave. You just actually answered it. You know, I have been switching, you know, shifting from one channel to another. I want to know the accused persons. Is there any detail about them? We've seen that there was some kind of a, you know, community panchayat which was held despite 144 being there in Hathras, where you know, people were saying that these people are being accused falsely and things like that. But why is none of the media has actually showed that. I was surprised that news channels were not. I only got to know that through Twitter. So I feel that, you know, the media also has their own agenda, which unfortunately for all of us to dig deeper is difficult, because it is not our job. We are being fed something like, you know, I'm sure all of us have been, at least now more than ever, 1984 of George Orwell becomes more important, because you see how you're being fed information, which then, because you do not have time to dig deeper, you actually just consider that, all right, this is what I've been fed and this is the correct thing. So media has to be responsible, but I think unfortunately, they are not doing a responsible job.
Right, and the way journalists were handled in this case, and also in the recent Vikas Dubey
encounter case.
So, what about the freedom of press in such situation?
I think freedom of press is also curtailed, and one notices that there is a lot of pick and choose which is happening. So suddenly one channel will be using one story and they will be out of that, you know, going right behind it for doggy ears, and they'll just keep talking about the same thing with all the different expressions that they can bring. The other channel might have some other agenda and they'll be talking about that. Are we to believe that this is the freedom of media that we are talking about? Because I personally feel that there are so many, or at least I may be wrong, but I still feel that media houses have their own agendas that they have been talking about and filling our minds with. And with the Sudarshan TV case, which is going on just now in Supreme Court, I'm actually feeling very positive that there is a possibility that Justice Chandrachud and Justice Thomas and Justice Indu Malhotra will come out with some kind of regulation, which will then not just provide the freedom to the media and the reporters, but will also ensure that there is curtailment in terms of things that you should not be showing. For instance, I remember SSR case. There was a channel which was showing the dead body and very close-up pictures of it. Do we want to see something like that? Are we an expert in looking at a dead body through our TV channels and arriving at a conclusion? I particularly feel that was not required. That again comes to the right to privacy and my death with dignity.
Right, and also the fact that it triggers so many people.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
On one side we are talking about mental health, and then on the other side the same media doesn't even actually care about it. But this also reminded me of what is another big thing which is circulating on social media, retired Justice Kajul's post, and he was the chairperson of Press Trust of India. So what are your views on that?
I better refrain from commenting about Dr. Justice Kajul at all. But unfortunately, I feel that he could have refrained from making the statements that he did, considering that he is a retired judge of the highest court of the country.
And also
sorry.
Press Trust of India.
Absolutely. And so you need to also understand that if this is the kind of reasoning which is given by the judge, a retired judge of the Honorable Supreme Court of India, what is the reasoning that is going to go down into the minds, the vulnerable minds of the boys and young adults? They would think that ये सही बोल रहा है, मेरे पास नौकरी नहीं है, चलो मैं यही करता हूँ. This is what you're saying at the end of it.
Yeah.
No matter how much you say the first two lines, I do not mean that I am not taking the sides of rapists, and then again you say I don't mean that I am taking sides of rapists, but you are saying that. Then you are actually stamping. Yeah, you're stamping that story. That is my understanding. I'm hugely disappointed by the statement that he made. I think that was completely uncalled for.
Ankit is saying victim statement is enough to prove the rape in such condition when there is no evidence found in medical examination due to time period. Is it true?
See, there are catena of judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court where they've said that prosecutory statements cannot be taken up lightly, and that if there are no corroborating evidences, or there is nothing which corroborates the occurrence of it, because there could be circumstantial evidence which is not there, or eyewitness evidence. So many times, especially as far as rape is concerned, you will never have an eyewitness evidence which will be there. So there is a lack of evidence which is there. But so many cases Supreme Court has said there is a case of Himachal Pradesh, and that happens to be a leading judgment. I'm forgetting the name of it, but that judgment very clearly says that prosecutory statement has to be considered as big as it should be considered as a holy grail, because they think it on the assumption that a woman will not make a statement which will be derogatory to her own self-respect.
Right. Akash has been.
I have a question with Pratap. So this is one thing that I always wanted to know as a doctor, because this is something that we have been doing in our practice. Whenever we used to have these underage kids brought up with assault, and we had to anesthetize them in the theater and have the examination done. Most of these would blurt out the name of the accuser or something like that, or would even say things related to the incidents in the effect of anesthesia. That is very common.
Yes.
We used to record it and we used to hand it over to the police. But does this hold in the
evidentiary value? I think it does, but the problem is that when you are under anesthesia, you are considered to be under influence. So unfortunately, those statements then cannot be held so much in the court of law. But I'm telling you, anybody who speaks anything under anesthesia, I've been under anesthesia twice, and my doctor told me I told him too many things. So, and the things that she actually told me back, I know that they were true. So unfortunately, but then because it is under influence, it cannot be considered as
because there are a lot of patients. For example, I'm doing the cesarean also. We have to calm them down, give them some anxiolytics or something like that, and then when their baby is born, the first thing they ask is "Kya hua? Ladka hua, ladki hua?" For example, if they have had like 2 daughters or 3 daughters, and now this time, and then they would just start, cursing themselves or something like that, and then in the influence, a lot of times they would say these things that you have no idea how my husband treats me because of this and that. And I in government setup, when I was working, I didn't really need to take a lot of headache on my shoulders, so I would just record it and give it to the police. Otherwise I was not really liable. But then now when I'm in private, I actually wanted to ask whether this is something that
but that is definitely a lead which is given to the police. No, they can actually work and build up their case on that lead. And even if you think this probably could not be a primary evidence, this can definitely be a secondary evidence. You can always examine your witness. You can always cross-examine your witness basis the pointers which are there. Unfortunately, a lot of these recorded things that probably you as a doctor are providing to the police would not even go in their case diary, or they would probably have it somewhere and they might just misplace it. So if there was a centralized system where maybe the doctor was also inserting things into some kind of a cloud mechanism and the IO was also simultaneously reporting, I think then there could have been something which would have provided some kind of statements which would have been not tampered with.
Ma'am, there is a question I would like to take. What can be done if someone tells you about, like, if someone shares that they have been raped, like, what can be done then? It is by Suyash.
Basically,
the first thing you, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just add to it. The other part is, for example, if a child, like Dr. Kanak said, that a child is sharing it with you, but may not give the same or may not be comfortable in sharing it with that somebody else, may not be even comfortable undergoing a medical test. And then how can you help that person? One. Secondly, if somebody was sexually assaulted in their childhood, but that time, because of, like you said, the fear that they knew that it will come to their family and they'll be judged by their neighbors and everybody, and they didn't have the courage to file the case then. But once they grow up, once they become an adult, and then they realize that they do want to take action against the person who breached their privacy. In those situations, as lawyers, how can we advise them?
See, as far as so a lot of childhood abuse that we see happens from the family members only, typically. So it is under the domestic violence. I'm not saying that it is 100% that it is happening in a domestic setup, but a lot of that happens under the domestic setup. So if you are a woman, you are definitely covered as far as protection of women under Domestic Violence Act is concerned, and you can definitely place it. So for that, because one needs to understand that domestic violence does not only cover men and women in terms of husband and wife, but it also covers women who are living in some sort of a domestic environment. Could be your aunt, could be your mother-in-law, could be your sister-in-law, anybody. That is one point that I feel one can exercise. But I think the whole idea is that you have to come forward then and there when you are witness, you have been, a victim. The first thing, and Dr. Kanak would also agree with me here, is that the first thing is that you have to get your MLC done, because that is the only thing that actually ascertains whether or not a rape has taken place or some kind of. So now rape also has so many different levels. You will also see that it could just be the penetration, it could be the entire act. So the definition also varies. With MLC, and typically the police takes possession of the clothes that you were wearing immediately. So there could be semen, semen which could be on the clothes, and then they send it to FSL for analysis. Of course, on your body, on your private parts, it's already there. So all of that then provides a lot of time pubic hair is left, so all that can also be ascertained. There are so many ways in which FSL actually conducts this, um, uh, uh, looks at how to establish whether or not the act of rape took place. That I think is the most important point, and for that the victim has to come forward, and the victim is definitely not in a position, looking at the circumstances right now in the country, to be able to speak. I mean, if you look at it, the whole Me Too movement that took place. Now, can you or anybody else who's probably been a victim some 18, 20 years back now be able to establish that they were victims? I think not. I'm sure a lot of lawyers here would have followed the case of MJ Akbar and Priya Ramani, the trial which was going on just now, and Rebecca John ma'am and Geeta Luthra ma'am were arguing, and you have to see that was not even rape, but it was so difficult for women to be able to give their evidence. So for a rape victim, it is probably 1,000 times more. So I think that's the answer.
3:30. So let's take last three questions. Few male members have been raising hands. So
very nice.
Yeah. Akash, I'm allowing you to unmute yourself. Please go ahead. Akash, you've raised your hand. Akash Parashar. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask that, so if someone, the same question as Suyash actually, but someone said that they have been tried to, someone has tried to assault them, or someone from the people they know in the childhood and all, or at that time someone was assaulted, and they share it with some at some a certain age when they reached and they realized and that something has happened and it was wrong, and so uske baad how can they go to seek help? How can they how can we support them?
Yeah,
it's the same.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, please go ahead.
No, I think, Akash, if I give you an honest answer, the truth is that because of the passage of time, it is difficult to bring about that evidence. But because you cannot really show all of that. But there have been instances that I've seen where, childhood victims, victims who probably were assaulted sexually by their uncles or anybody with whom they had a relationship of trust. They lived through it for their entire life. They have had that. They carry that burden upon themselves for their entire life. And unlike the Western world, where we see that there is some kind of therapy which is available in India, therapy is looked down upon, and so they are never able to just get away with it. And unfortunately, our system is such that even today, I can vouch that 80% of these kids who are probably victims would not be even getting support from their parents to go and report. As a matter of fact, I know of a friend, a very close friend of mine, who was assaulted by her uncle, and she's my age. And a couple of years back, she told her parents that that uncle actually did this to me, and the parents never said anything to that uncle. Now she's old, and a couple of years back would mean when she was probably 35 when she told her parents about this, and the parents did not. And even today, till this date, that uncle comes to their family, comes to their house, and she is reliving that every single time that happens. So, and unfortunately, she doesn't have the evidence to show. So if her own parents are not believing it, or even if they are believing it, they do not want to confront because of जो भी रिश्तेदार क्या कहेंगे और वो हमारे रिश्तेदार हैं, on all of that nonsense that comes in. Is that going to really help? No. Unfortunately, everything in our world, as far as law is concerned, is dependent upon evidence. And as time passes by, evidence is just not there. So not much can be done.
Similar incident I'm aware of. A girl was raped by her own batchmate in her school days, and the school suspended the girl because other parents said that she's a bad influence on on our kids, and therefore we will not send our kids to the same school where she's studying. And therefore, not only like she was going through the trauma of suffering the assault, but also the fact that she was being suspended. So now the entire world.
I think Samanika ma'am got stuck, I guess.
She'll probably join us back. Priyanka, do you want to read other questions? Or?
I'll take a couple of questions. There are a lot of questions, like, and from boys especially. I'm so happy that they are actively taking part in these conversations. So, what is a medical? On mute. I'm so sorry. So we had this question that I guess it was a part of discussion also, that in marriage, like the sexual intercourse is maybe on regular basis, then how will the doctors identify whether internal bruising has happened or not? I guess Kanak ma'am, we had discussed this on phone call also.
Yeah, that is always it's always circumstantial only. We can never say that definitely. Most of them come up with associated vaginal tears as well, and they bleed so much that I have actually seen 2 mortalities in front of me because of that. But then you can never say that it is due to marital rape. You can always say that, okay, this was as an act of rough sex or something like that. That is an issue. Actually, the previous discussion that you guys are having, a very interesting case that I had was this child was brought up 4 years old, or 4 or 5 years old, something, and she was brought at like 4 a.m. I was on my night shift, and she was bleeding like anything, and she was crying. We could definitely not assess her. She was just clinging to her mother. Now we had to take her for examination, but because she was a child and I was a junior staff, I decided to wait till the morning, give her some supportive treatment, and wait till the morning for my senior to arrive, and so that he can conduct an examination. Now the examination was conducted under anesthesia. Everything, her entire butthole opening and everything was just torn, absolutely torn. And by the 3rd day, because we were seeing the patient continuously, she'd become a little familiar to us, so she started speaking to us. Then the police came and they recorded the statements. We were right there in the room when the recording was taking place, because such kids, they tend to panic, and that's the reason. When I think it took her 15 days to recover completely. On the 15th day, when she was about to be discharged, I was just telling her that, drink a lot of water, and, don't sit cross-legged, beta aise nahi baithna. She's hardly 4 years old. And, don't sit cross-legged, don't ride a cycle or something like that. All those things I was advising her. And she did this, and she said, can I say in Hindi or you? Because
yeah,
and
she
just said, Didi, wo to is baar take aaye hain. And I don't think I have been more shocked in my life. She was only 4 years old, and she was a habitual person. And then I just called the police constables immediately, that this is something like this and you need to intervene. And then by that time, the girl had become, open to those guys as well. And so she just said that, they asked her again that, did you know the person? She said, no, I didn't know. But when this took place, 4 days before that, this man, he came to my mother and he gave her some money, and he told her to go and leave me with. So all this time, while we were feeling sorry about the mother, she was the one who's using her child for this thing. Eventually, because this was such a tricky case, the family, the girl and her mother, they were the ones, kind of beggars or something like that, and they used to sleep on footpaths and everything. Eventually, the police also left because they were like, what can we do in this case? And probably the person, he's still roaming freely.
God.
So this is a very difficult thing, and I think some law needs to be made in this case, because there are cases where we have seen parents being involved. It's uncommon, but it is still there.
We have POCSO in place, but still that nothing stops predators,
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. I got to learn a lot, and like I said in the beginning, it's a very sensitive topic. We hope we didn't hurt anyone's emotions, and if we did by any chance, we are extremely sorry for that. And you can connect with us over LinkedIn if you want to discuss further on this. I'm pretty sure Pallavi ma'am will be there. I'm not sure about Dr. Kanak. I'm not sure.
She's there.
Okay. So you can connect.
There, I think she was tagged.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you can connect with them over LinkedIn and take the discussion forward. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you
guys.
Thank you so much.
you for
Thank you so
having
much
me.
for having us. And Dr. Kanak, it was such an insightful session.
Yes.
You've actually told us so many brilliant things that we probably did not know of. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Bye.